Hi everyone, welcome to part 15 of Drawing the Lotus Pod in Colour. Now, this video is going to start looking at the ridge or lip that circles the pod. Now, this is probably one of the most difficult things to do in this part of the pod, but I'm going to talk you through that now. And if I haven't, I will be going through this with you in class. So I've got the original pod here now. I'll just pop that there. And to sort of give you a bit more of a 3D, if possible, idea of what we're doing, we're trying to capture the roundness and the way the light is falling on this edge and this edge, okay, all the way around. Now, the thing to remember is it's obviously this is dried and it's very thin now, but the light will change as it moves around the pod, so it'll never be depicted in the same way all around, or else it's going to look quite flat. And if you're able to manage to capture it and how it changes as it moves around the pod, it will really help in the viewer understanding how the pod is sitting in space, okay, and how you read that lip, okay. Now, enough of that. So for those that have done it in class, I've given you a couple of enlarged versions of this printout, and but you can also use the digital images that I've supplied as well. And if I haven't, please let me know, and I can send them to you. So the way I've been tackling this is by working on its side. All right. You'll notice that I turn my image a lot and work in different directions. I find it really helpful. So I'm just going to talk you through what's happening here with the light at the moment. And you can see the light is coming from this direction, so from the top. And you can see that there are highlights being picked up along this ridge about here. And they're varying degrees of strength, okay? So some of these highlights are now getting a little bit softer than, say, this one here or these ones over there. Now, as you move around the pod, and I'm just going to pull out a little bit, because it's at this point where the pod is starting to turn and move into the shadows, okay, that these highlights are starting to disappear and we've got no light on the edge of this rim, okay? Then as we turn around towards the shadow side, we're picking up things like this, reflected light. And as we move further around and it's turning away from us, we can see some of the, what were we calling them? Like little bumpules. I think I was calling them little bumpules. Bit of a made up word, but we're getting these sort of round sections. So they're becoming more visible. Then as we move around, we're seeing the inside of this rim. So the opposite to what we're seeing on this side. So we're seeing the inside now. And as the light moves across the surface, we can see it's hitting this edge, and there are varying degrees of light and shadow as you move around. But as we head towards the highlight, well, this lighter area, there's less shadow over here, okay? So that's a little talk about what's happening with the light around that. let's move over to one I prepared earlier. All right. Now, hopefully you can see here that I've starting to pick up the highlights here. And the way that I'm doing it is I'm working underneath, because this is casting a shadow. We've got highlights here and we've got shadow underneath. So it's casting a bit of a shadow under here. And then from the other side, we're adding an edge, okay, because we can see it in the image here. We can see that edge, we can see a highlight, and we can see some shadows. Edge, highlight, shadows. Okay. Then as we move around, remembering that these are the first applications, so the highlights are going to be a bit wider before we start to add some more colour to it. And at this sort of roughly midpoint in the pod, we start to lose these highlights and we flip, okay, to having the darkest point in the middle, right, in the middle of the rim. Okay, stay with me. So as we start, keep moving that around, you can see I've saved a little bit of reflected light there. And the way I've created that is by sort of drawing a little line, and hopefully that's starting to get subsumed into what's below it. And then on the other side, I've just done a very light line, which will pick up, which will isolate these lighter areas here. Okay, so I'm going to start with that. As I said, this is probably the most difficult section of the pod. Further to what I've done here, notice how I'm creating these bumpules by drawing a line across the front of the, or adding some pencil across the front of the rim, and just shading slightly to one side, okay? And that is giving us, you know, segments that we can sort of just pick up. Here, for example, here, 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 and here, okay? So hopefully that this video just gives you enough information to show you what we're dealing with and how to approach drawing something like this. Okay, I'm going to stop the video now, and in the next video we'll do some drawing. Okay, bye for now.